They say the desert keeps its secrets, but what if those secrets aren't buried in the sand? What if they were erased, one wife at a time, in blood and silence? In the winter of 1859, a group of Mormon women vanished without record. Their names never appeared in church ledgers, no graves marked their passing, only whispers of a covenant sealed not with faith, but with elimination. And tonight, we open the record they never wanted written. Utah 1859, a territory carved out of wilderness, claimed by pioneers who fled persecution, but built a theocracy with its own rules. Polygamy was not just tolerated here, it was sanctified. Women became property of the covenant, vessels for eternity. But in secret meetings deep beneath the Great Salt Lake Valley, a separate vow was whispered. A vow not all wives were meant to survive. They called it the Purification. Church records from the period describe vast family networks, men with 10, 20, sometimes 30 wives. But scattered oral accounts tell a different story. Wives who appeared in one census only to vanish in the next. Children suddenly motherless, told she was never yours. It was as if whole bloodlines had been erased, surgically, quietly. Travelers described finding fragments in the desert, scraps of fabric, half-buried bones, strands of women's hair caught on sagebrush, always without markers, always without names, and when they asked, locals lowered their voices. They were covenant wives, they said. Not all of them were chosen to endure. Hidden journals from 1859, attributed to an elder named Silas Beecham, describe a trial of wives. The strongest, the most obedient, were elevated. The weak, the disobedient, the barren. They were removed, not divorced, not abandoned, removed. The word drips with finality. Missionary accounts tell of orphanages swelling in the late 1850s, filled with children who asked questions no one would answer. "Where is Mother?" they pleaded. The response was always the same: "The Lord has called her." But the silence in those orphanages told a darker truth, that their mothers were not in heaven but somewhere unmarked beneath the desert soil. Whispers suggest there was a ritual, a gathering by torchlight in abandoned canyons. Wives lined up, veils over their faces, a hymn sung low, voices cracking against the stone, and then silence, as some were chosen and others were led away, never to be seen again. Archaeological digs near Provo have unearthed mass graves with bones that tell strange stories. Skeletons of women between 20 and 40, no signs of disease, no markers of battle. They were healthy, alive, and then erased, but to this day no church records mention them. One account survives of a woman named Esther Caraway. She resisted. She spoke openly of a hidden covenant that demanded death. Within weeks, she was gone. Her husband remarried, her name scrubbed from every record. But one child kept her memory alive, scribbling in a hidden Bible. They took her in the night. She screamed. No one helped. The church hierarchy of the time wielded silence as a weapon. They controlled printing presses, record-keeping, even the testimonies of their people. If a wife was removed, her name was not crossed out. It was deleted, as though she had never lived. This was not forgetting. It was deliberate unmaking. In 1862, a former elder fled to Illinois with documents he claimed would expose the practice. He never arrived. His body was found in the Missouri River, pockets empty, skull fractured. The documents never seen again, but the whispers, they grew louder. Trauma lingers in children. Across scattered memoirs, one refrain repeats: "My mother was taken." Taken, not died, not lost, taken. These children grew into haunted adults, unable to explain the gaps in their family trees, but certain of one thing: something unspeakable had been done to their mothers. Travelers often described feeling watched in Utah's canyons. Campers reported seeing women in white veils drifting silently through the brush, faces pale, eyes hollow. Were these hallucinations born of hunger and heat, or echoes of those covenant wives who had been purified? The covenant was not about love, it was about control. Wives were given tests: endure hunger, accept new wives, birth children without question. Failure was not tolerated. The punishment was not earthly. It was final. Some historians believe the covenant wives were used symbolically, that their deaths were woven into the very soil of the settlements, blood offerings to bind the desert to their faith. If so, Utah's foundations are not built on stone but on sacrifice. Descendants of those families still speak of strange afflictions, infertility, recurring nightmares of veiled women, voices calling from beneath the ground. The curse is not folklore, it is memory carried in the blood. When federal agents arrived in Utah in the 1870s to investigate polygamy, locals shut their doors, files went missing, witnesses recanted, the government found nothing, but the silence was too perfect, too complete. Something had been scrubbed clean. Hikers still find unmarked graves in Utah's canyons, shallow pits with brittle bones. The desert wind howls through them like a hymn. Each one could be a covenant wife. Each one a woman erased. The story of the secret wives has never been acknowledged. Not by the church, not by historians, but absence is not proof of innocence. Sometimes silence is the loudest confession. Imagine it, standing in Utah's desert at night, the wind slicing through your skin. Beneath your feet lie wives no one remembered, whose only crime was to marry into a covenant they could not survive. Their names are gone, their bodies hidden, but their silence still speaks. And if you listen closely enough, you might hear them call from the earth, from the bones, from the covenant that promised eternity, but delivered only death.